So the business acumen that you need today compared to a couple years ago is completely different. And the leadership skills that you need today compared to even a couple of months ago, as AI continues to change, is completely different, right? Gone are the days of let's put up something on Psychology Today and, people are just going to flood in, or let's put something on social media. There has to be more intention behind it. I think that the other thing is being more involved online and offline. Some folks are having to really do more boots on the ground, conversations, partnerships, referral networks, build those things. And so I always think about just from when I first started, I'm like, oh, this is my world. This is like the old school way of doing things, the tried and true way of doing things. And that's what people are starting to find out.
This episode is brought to you by TherapyNotes, TherapyNotes.com. For the past 20 plus years, I've been working in the mental health field as a licensed therapist, private practice owner, coach, and consultant. And I've learned a lot the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi there, I'm Gordon Brewer, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your practice, or looking for fresh inspiration, this podcast is here to support you in your journey. Each week, we explore the real-world challenges and opportunities that come with building and growing your private practice. From marketing and money management to ethics, client care, and self-care, we cover it all. You'll hear from leading experts, seasoned clinicians, and innovative voices in the mental health and allied health fields, all sharing their insights and strategies to help you thrive in your practice. So let's jump in and get to today's episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast. And welcome to the podcast. This is episode number 431 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. I'm Gordon Brewer. So glad you've joined me in this journey, and so glad you've tuned in to another episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast. I'm looking forward to you hearing again from Brandy Mabra. Brandy, I believe, has been on this podcast before, and Brandy is really focuses on what it takes to think like a CEO in your practice. And one of the things we get into in this particular conversation is just thinking about profitability in a private practice, and also just a lot of the angst and things that we're hearing around AI and the buzz around AI, and how I think a lot of therapists are worried about, is AI going to be competition for us as therapists? I know in my consultant group that I met with earlier today, we had that conversation just about people turning to platforms like some of the tech platforms like BetterHelp and TalkSpace and those kinds of things, and just how AI is being used by the general public to get, if you will, counseling advice or therapy advice. And so Brandy and I dive into that a little bit and just talk about what it's going to take for us to stand out in a world that's ever changing, particularly around technology and the advent of AI. I will say that I absolutely love using AI. I use it about every single day in some form or fashion, just with doing research or really writing copy and those kinds of things. That really streamlines things, but a lot of people are using it in other ways. So we're going to jump into that here in a moment. But before we get to that, one of the things I'd like to invite you to do is go over to the website, practiceoftherapy.com, and check out the coaching and consulting page. You'll see a link there at the top. And if you're interested in working with me and doing some one-on-one coaching, I'd love to talk to you. And you'd begin that process just by filling out an application and also scheduling a free 15-minute brainstorming session with me for us just to chat about what it is that you're needing help with, but also seeing if we would be a good fit for each other. And so be sure to check that out. Again, go to practiceoftherapy.com/ coaching and consulting, or just hit the link there at the top of the page, the button rather. And also, before I get to my conversation with Brandy, I'd love for you to hear from our sponsor of the podcast, Therapy Notes.
Hi, this is Rachel, Gordon's podcast assistant, and I want to share the platform Gordon trusts for his own practice, Therapy Notes. Therapy Notes is the highest rated EHR, practice management, and billing software for mental health professionals. It's an all-in-one system for scheduling, notes, billing, and secure client communication. And if you ever need help, their 24/7 customer service is always just a call or email away. Their latest update, Therapy Fuel, uses AI to streamline documentation, generating progress notes, creating contact notes from client messages, and even summarizing client history forms, saving therapists hours every week. Are you ready to give it a try? Head to therapynotes.com, click Start My Free Trial, and use the code GORDON to get your first 2 months free. See why Therapy Notes is the most trusted EHR and the one Gordon chooses for his practice. Please enjoy the rest of the show.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. And I'm happy to have back on this episode Brandy Mabra. Welcome, Brandy.
Thank you. Thank you.
So glad to have her. She, if you want to go back to episode number 248, we were just talking about, it's been a lot longer than we thought since we chatted with each other. So, but Brandy, as I start with everyone, tell folks who you are and how you've landed where you've landed.
Yeah, I have almost 2 decades worth of healthcare business and leadership experience. So I have been on what I call all the sides of healthcare. So I've been on the private practice side, the corporate side, the payer side, the, now entrepreneurial side. And so I've been able to take all that expertise and now help others, specifically on the business side of their practice. I always get asked if I am a practitioner or if I am a therapist or I'm a clinician. And I have a strong clinical background, come from a family of healthcare. So I'm very, very familiar and love the field, but also know that it can present some challenges, especially as you're growing and scaling businesses. So that's my lane. That's my lane.
Yeah. That's great. And Brandy brings just a lot of expertise that I think we can draw from. And one of the things that we were chatting about before we started recording, just how much there's so much buzz about AI and whether or not it's going to hurt our professions and that kind of thing. And Brandy just has some great stories about that. And one I know that she mentioned was just around Salesforce. You want to say more about that and maybe tell folks what Salesforce is if they aren't sure what that is.
Yeah, so Salesforce is a huge company. I know it specifically from when I was with a specific payer. We would have to go around and talk to different practices. And so it's more or less on the sales side, it's like a CRM where you're able to document things too, but it's more tech-based. And recently I was reading about how they laid off 4,000 employees to move to more of an AI model, which makes sense. You want to try to be profitable, efficient, effective, all those things. However, the interesting thing is that they have decided that probably wasn't the best move because the reliability of actually having humans and just even the engagement from the human side is missing. So they are now having some regrets because they've lost money. They thought that they were going to gain money from profitability because of not having payroll. And now they're in process of losing money more than what they thought that they would because of the migration over to AI. So I think when we think about it from a healthcare perspective, it's really interesting.
Yeah. Ironically, their sales have gone down.
Even though... Yes. Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah. And I think I think for a lot of us, there is a lot of angst around the advent of AI. I did a short YouTube video just about that. And I think one of the things is I think anytime change comes along, we tend to let our anxiety get the best of us around those things. But you even go back in history and you look at big changes that came along, like the invention of the train, the invention of the automobile, cell phones, all of those kinds of things were big life-changing things that we all embrace now.
Absolutely. Business has cycles, I always say. And so I think when you've been around it enough years, even with me 2 decades, there's a lot that I've seen in the 20 plus years, and there's ups and downs. And so even with innovation's great. But you also, from a business perspective, you have to be careful as you're jumping onto almost what the latest and greatest. You don't want to be what I call the blockbuster of business, or you don't want to think where Amazon isn't going to come and actually take over, because there's an interesting documentary with Jeff Bezos about that very thing. He tried to talk to like Barnes and Noble, and he tried to talk to some of the existing companies, and they laughed at him. So that's the biggest change would be the internet. And so I think from a business perspective, we have to pay attention to industry. We have to pay attention to what's happening now so we can be smart business owners. But also we have to think about, especially from a leadership standpoint, what does this mean for this time next year? And so even with AI, there's tools. There's so many tools. And this time last year, everybody was like, ChatGPT. And now we just had a conversation this past Tuesday about migration over to cloud. And so one of the things that I always say is be picky and make sure, especially if you have team, for how you're bringing them in that conversation. And then if there's a particular tool that you love, maybe don't get so attached to it, and maybe get attached to the workflow of it, or get attached to what it can do. And then also think about if it goes out of business, because all of these companies are truly, they're tech companies, right? So they're trying to race to the top. They're trying to make decisions that they think is best for really almost their bottom line, and just what's going to help them get to a certain place in industry. But also what that means for us as we're continuing to scale and grow businesses is that means that sometimes that tool won't be around, or maybe that tool could go out of business, or that tool might merge with another tool. So when you think about that conversation, because that's what's happened in other past cycles, then you have to be prepared for that. And so I think some people miss that piece because they get so excited about what a certain piece of software could do.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember, like you said, is there are cycles, and I think ultimately, particularly in our professions, people really want that face-to-face, person-to-person contact rather than it being on a screen or virtually, or that sort of thing. And so I think that's one of the things that, like that story you told about Salesforce, people are not wanting to necessarily interact with AI as much as they thought they did.
Yeah. And you could tell, you can tell at this point in time too, in some of the conversation, who is using AI, who is doing things from more of an organic lens. And I think automation has been around for a long time. That's not new, and being able to have software help with just the day-to-day, that's not new. But how the tools that we're using today, that's what's new, right? So we have to pay attention and pull from the past for what was this like before, and what stayed, what didn't stay, and then how did it evolve? And so as you look throughout the years, there's some, like I think about the implementation of EHR systems and going from paper charts, and so with that, like there were some tools that people were like, oh, this is the best tool. And then some of those tools aren't even around today because they couldn't survive certain economic cycles, or they merged with somebody else, or they got bought out. So you be, again, just mindful of it, be excited about it, be aware of it, but also think about it from a deeper lens. And I think sometimes people miss that part.
As you've just obviously you've researched this a lot and thought a lot about it. What do you see as kind of the evolution of all of the AI things, particularly for therapists and counselors and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that it's an important conversation for people to be part of the change, right? And I love it because I know that there are some even our clients are helping with the development of it, thought processes. I know that even with ChatGPT, they're trying to do ChatGPT Health. I don't know what's going to happen with that, considering some of the things that are happening with them right now. However, I don't think it will replace the human aspect of it by any means. I was also reading on just the next generation. So I have a son, he's 20 years old. And the next generation, actually, there's almost too much of a good thing. And so because we've been so, to your point, what you're saying, of we're missing that face-to-face connection and being able to actually have real-time conversations, then the next generation actually is being brought up more with that. So what does that mean when we get to the virtual space, years to come? So I think when we think about healthcare, when we think about therapy, when we think about just those real-time conversations, I think there will always be, because this is as soon as the virtual space opened, I think there will be a combination of hybrid always. I think there will be the folks who want to do in person and want that connection. And then there will be the person who maybe does virtual sometimes, if that's something that the payer will continue to pay for, because that conversation that's happening as well. But I think ultimately it will be a combination of both, because the technology is there. I don't think it'll go anywhere, but I think how we use it will change, and the frequency will change.
I think what AI, as I've thought about this, because I use AI just about every single day.
Oh, every day.
Some form. Yeah. Well, I mean, even if you're doing just a Google search, you're using AI now. So, I mean, one of the things I've thought about is that what it will do is make our knowledge base, well, it's already doing this, our knowledge base about things much more accessible.
Yes.
And the organization of data, it can do that better than anything or anybody and that kind of thing. But like you said, the one thing it doesn't do is that face-to-face, human-to-human contact. And I can't imagine that it could ever mimic that, because, it tries even now. I mean, it's, you ask ChatGPT a question and it's just so friendly, and its response and tells you how great your question is and all that kind of thing. And so it's, it's been programmed to do all of that. Yeah. But it still doesn't replace the human to human contact.
It doesn't. And I think about like a conversation that we were having as a group with for Private Practice CEO, and how can you incorporate some of the conversations that maybe clients are having with ChatGPT and bringing in those things. So I think about even just the visit prior to AI, where you would Google something, you would be like, well, I Googled X, Y, and Z, and I think I'm dying, because of what's come across.
Right.
And so I think being smart with the interactions, and that's where the real time, like, this is what it's telling you, but is it right? Is it wrong? Especially with some of the hallucinations that are still happening. I think as time goes by, it'll probably get smarter, but I think now is the time for foundational work and especially, again, going back to the team, other providers, like, what are you doing? What's the stance for the practice? But then also, how are you incorporating those AI conversations into like the everyday conversations that you're having? Because if you can meet them where they're at, then I think that's where you can go deeper and definitely make some of the sessions stronger.
Right. Too. Yeah.
We're almost halfway through the year, and a lot of people are running on empty without fully realizing it. Grow Therapy helps you find care that's covered by insurance before burnout becomes the baseline. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
La música, la comida y el arte nos definen y unen, y vienen en colores que respiran cultura y nos conectan con su variedad y riqueza. Encontrarás esa misma variedad en las pinturas Valspar Ultra. Gran cobertura y durabilidad desde $29.98 el galón. Disfruta de protección diaria contra arañazos y desgaste con un acabado suave y lavable. Estamos hechos de colores. Refleja ese orgullo cultural que sientes por dentro en cada pared de tu hogar con Valspar Ultra. Disponible en Lowe's.
Yeah, so with and thinking about what you do, Brandy, and just working with maybe larger practices and different healthcare organizations over the years, where do you see that we can make the best use of AI?
I think with exactly what you said, the organization structure of it, I think also, again, like having like policy and procedures around how the practice uses it, making sure that people understand paid versions from free versions, what you can put in, what you can't put in, those types of things. But ultimately, I think the in the weeds work is where it's going to really shine. And I think that's where it's shining now. But I think even when going back to the Salesforce conversation, you're still going to need some type of director or some person to oversee it, because automation is automation. Computers are computers, and they can. And so you need like checks and balances as you're working with AI, and you need checks and balances with the team and how they're working with AI. And definitely from a patient perspective, you need to make sure that you have checks and balances, I believe, when it comes to AI as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think another thing too is that I got to maybe switch a little bit here. One of the things that I think comes up is people going to AI to get advice for, and so that feels like a threat to therapists. Not that we give advice. I mean, it's anybody that's in this field knows that you're not in the business of giving advice, but more of being partners and walking with people along the way and that kind of thing. But one of the things with that is that sometimes the advice isn't all that good.
No, it's not.
And so that's something. And I think too, I think the fear of AI replacing therapists is they might be asking those questions, but ultimately they're still seeking out that human to human contact.
Absolutely. 110%. I think all of us within the healthcare space, especially from a practitioner standpoint, are safe, right? Because even using where it still needs, again, that checks and balances, and people still want that human to human connection. People still need to feel validated and understood, and not to the expense of like being a yes person. And even if you tell ChatGPT to be honest, it's still honest in a way that is still super, nice. And sometimes you need somebody to show up truly that mirror and just to be honest. And so I think that it will never, and even if you, I'm sure you know this, just with everything that's happening in society and just the climate around us, economy, all of it, like there's now a big boom. There's an uptick when it comes to just the therapy piece and mental health and people reaching out to, needing services. So I think it's an exciting time. I think it's an exciting time for technology. I think it's an exciting time for healthcare. And I think it's, even with some of the challenges that we're facing, I think there's a huge opportunity for people to step up and to be part of the change and to help for what the change is going to look like even 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if they choose to.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, one of the things that I think we can fall a trap into is not listening to our clients and not listening to our patients in a way of literally getting to what they want for themselves as opposed to what we think's best for them. Kind of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Brandy, what are some other things in just your work? I know we've got to be mindful of our time, but in the work that you've been doing with therapists and, people in the mental health fields, what are you seeing that are their biggest challenges that you hear that you help them with?
I think right now, because of some of the changes, there is still the economy piece that is happening. And so they're having to be more strategic about how they're scaling their practices. And I think for the ones who are doing really well, and what I see is because they're thinking outside the box, right? And so they're thinking outside the box from a multidisciplinary standpoint. So I work with a lot of different credentials, which I feel really blessed to be able to do that. But the ones who are profitable, the ones who are really having the most engaged teams are the ones who are adding a level of sophistication to their practices outside of even just like one-on-one work, right? Or changing it up with the type of specialties that they're bringing into their practice in order to go deeper with the client. And then also being some practices right now who are strictly private pay, or now, because I work with global clients, are in the place of thinking about, do I need to add in a payer? And so that conversation, just because of some of the things that are happening within economy. So the business acumen that you need today compared to a couple years ago is completely different. And the leadership skills that you need today compared to even a couple of months ago, as AI continues to change, is completely different, right? So they're having to be more strategic, more intentional, more purposeful with how they're communicating. Why are they doing certain things? And kind of gone are the days of, let's put up something on Psychology Today and, people are just going to flood in, or let's put something on social media. There has to be more intention behind it. I think the other thing is being more involved online and offline. Some folks are having to really do more boots on the ground, conversations, partnerships, referral networks, build those things. And so I always think about, just from when I first started, I'm like, oh, this is my world. This is like the old school way of doing things, the tried and true way of doing things. And that's what people are starting to find out.
Yeah. And that brings us full circle around to that whole idea of the human to human contact. I think the best referral sources for any practice are those word of mouth, kinds of things, and not depending on a social media algorithm to bring you up and people could connect with people that way. So it's just,
I always say that if big hospital systems with millions and millions and millions of dollars in resources out the yin yang, if they are sitting at like a baseball game with a table, or they're doing, we're getting ready to go into warm weather, like movies in the park, and they're having to have these conversations, then us as private practice, with private practices and businesses and small businesses, like we have to do the same thing, right? Because there's a recipe of success that's there too.
Well, this is a fascinating conversation. And I know that we could probably spend all day talking about these things. And it's really been very, the whole AI conversation. And we didn't even talk about this, tech companies getting into the mental health field, things like BetterHelp, Talkspace, those kinds of things are things that people might see as a threat. But I think in the long run, people are going to still go for that person-to-person contact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even I read something with BetterHelp, how people are getting frustrated because when we think about team engagement and buy-in, when you work for a big company like that, sometimes those things are missing. So people are missing sessions, like the therapists or the practitioners aren't coming, they're not showing up, they're canceling. And, so because the team engagement is missing in some of those places. So I think if you have a practice that is well run, I think if you have a practice where your team feels supported and is engaged and you are being a great leader, and definitely with that business savvy, I think honestly, you're in the best position to do well in an environment like this. 110%.
In the whole workplace environment, for some reason, our conversation reminded me of this last time I went to the dentist. I had needed to change dentists because of my insurance stuff and that sort of thing. But anyway, the dentist I used to go to was more low tech. They were just kind of old school kind of dentist. And then I came to this new place and they had all the amazing tech stuff, like 3D imaging of your mouth and all of that kind of stuff. And you could just tell the people working there, the dental hygienists and dentists and everything, they were just having a great time with each other. And, and it reflects in the care that I got from that. So, I mean,
absolutely. I think you have to embrace everything. Like, so you can't be stuck in the past. And you also need a really great team as well. So you have both and you can have that nice compliment, then you'll have exactly what you had at the dentist. I love to hear that. I hope your visit went well.
Yeah, it went well. I had a good checkup, no cavities. So that's good. Yeah. So, Brandy, tell folks how they can get in touch with you and some of the things that you offer.
Yeah, Absolutely. So they can find me on Instagram. That's kind of my place to hang out, and also LinkedIn. I'm at Brandy Mabra, BrandyMabra. And then you can also find me on my website at savvyclover.com, SAVVYCLOVER.com. If you go there, then there is a number of tools that is there waiting for you, from practice health assessments to master classes that I have. And then I also have my own podcast as well called CEO Conversations. So
tell us about the podcast real quick.
Yeah, so the podcast it's fun. So it comes out every week. We have conversations around just what's happening in a healthcare economy now. We also have some really great guests that come on and chime in from different lenses. Like we talked about travel. I love travel. I think travel is so important. And so we've talked about travel. We talked about some of the business side of how to hire, how to engage your team. The conversations are definitely for the 7-figure, multi-7-figure, or that 6-figure person that's going into higher levels of revenue. But it's fun. It's really, really fun.
Well, great. We'll have links in the show notes and the show summary for anybody that wants to get to that quickly. And Brandy, hope to have you back again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gordon. Thank you for having me here.
Well, big thanks to Brandy for being on the podcast, and be sure and check out her things. Again, you can get to her by going to Savvy Clover Coaching, and we'll have links here in the show notes and the show summary as mentioned. And Brandy's also undergoing some changes in her branding, so looking forward to all of that, and just really focusing on what it takes to think like a CEO in your practice and really do those things that are going to really help you be profitable in your practice. So be sure and check that out. And also, before we go, if you don't mind, go over to practiceoftherapy.com and check out the coaching and consulting page. You can just click on the button there at the top. And also take time to follow us or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. And also head over to YouTube to the Psychcraft Network channel. And I'm putting up some unique and new content on there around men's mental health, and also just private practice tips that you can find there on that particular channel. And you can just go to youtube.com at Psychcraft Network, and you can find us there, and take time to subscribe to that too. And big thanks to TherapyNotes for being a sponsor of this podcast. They are a leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice, and absolutely impressed with everything they do. One of the things that they've come out with here recently is an app. And so I'm really thrilled about that, and just being able to access patient records and scheduling and all the stuff that we need just on the go there on our cell phone. So be sure and check it out. Go to practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes and use the promo code Gordon, just GORDON, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. So take care, folks. Glad you've joined us. Do take time to subscribe to the podcast or follow us, and we'll be back again next week for another episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast. You have been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free Private Practice Startup Guide at practiceoftherapy.com. And to find more great podcasts like this one, please visit the Psychcraft Network at psychcraftnetwork.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. And if you need help in these areas, be sure to find the right professional to help you with these things.
When it's time to scale your business, it's time for Shopify. Get everything you need to grow the way you want. Like, all the way. Stack more sales with the best converting checkout on the planet. Track your cha-chings from every channel, right in one spot. And turn real-time reporting into big-time opportunities. Take your business to a whole new level. Switch to Shopify. Start your free trial today.
The R&B Tour, starring Usher Raymond and Chris Brown, uniting two of R&B's defining hitmakers, Chris Brown and Usher Raymond. Get tickets now at livenation.com.